This wasn't just another planning application. It was the moment York quietly committed to a £2 billion future. For years, the land west of York Station sat locked in limbo, fenced off, forgotten, written off as too complex. But behind closed doors, something was finally lining up. With paperwork, partnerships and pressure were converging, and when they did, the scale of what was being proposed caught almost everyone off guard. Developers submitted plans for the next major phase of York Central, a regeneration scheme covering 45 hectares of brownfield land beside the railway station. Valued at £2 billion, it instantly became one of the largest city centre regeneration projects in the UK. The site, once dominated by railway freight and infrastructure, is now earmarked for a brand new urban district, which will include new homes, businesses, hotels, public spaces, and a new western entrance to York Station itself. This wasn't speculative vision anymore. It was a detailed planning submission that signalled York Central was finally moving from concept into construction reality. What mattered wasn't just the money, it was the intent. York wasn't expanding outward, it was rewriting its centre. But the real story only emerges when you look at what they're actually building on this land. This isn't one development, it's an entire new neighbourhood. As the headlines focused on the price tag, the finer details told a deeper story. Because what's planned here isn't a single block or landmark, it's a complete piece of city fabric, designed to function from day one. The first major build phase includes around 999 new homes, delivered across mixed tenures, with roughly 20% designated as affordable housing. Alongside that comes with a large innovation and business hub, retail and leisure units woven into street and level spaces, and a 213-bed hotel aimed at visitors and business travellers. Public parks, squares and walking routes run through this site, intentionally linking residential, commercial and cultural areas. The goal is density without isolation, a district that lives, works and moves as one. York Central isn't filling space, it's engineering everyday life minute by minute. And all of this hinges on one overlooked factor that controls how the city actually flows. Nothing here works without fixing how people arrive. York Station has always faced east towards the historic city, but behind it, the west side remained a dead end. That imbalance shaped movement, investment and access for decades. York Central is designed to flip that dynamic. A central feature of the plan is new western entrance to the York railway station, physically connecting the station to the regeneration site. This isn't just cosmetic, it's structural. It creates a second front door to the city, allowing direct pedestrian access into the new district and beyond. Combined with new roads, walking routes and public transport integration, the station becomes a hinge point rather than a barrier. The regeneration is literally built around mobility. Control the station and you control how the city grows. But projects of this scale don't move without serious power behind them. But before any of this works, York has to confront what already holds it back. For all the ambitions stacked into York Central, the site doesn't exist in isolation. It sits in a city already strained by forces that can't be master planned away. Flooding, congestion and limited capacity in the historic core. York is one of the UK's most flood-prone cities, shaped by River Ouse and Foss. Climate projections suggest flooding events will become more frequent and more severe, and large parts of the wider city already live with that reality. Any major regeneration near critical transport infrastructure has to prove not just resilience, but long-term adaptability. Flood mitigation here isn't a design feature, it's a prerequisite. Drainage systems, raised ground levels, and sustainable water management will determine whether York Central is future-proofed or perpetually vulnerable. And then there's the traffic. York city centre is already constrained by medieval streets never designed for modern movement. Congestion, air quality concerns and limited road capacity shape how the people experience the city daily. A development of this scale inevitably adds pressure, with more residents, more workers and more visitors, unless transport behaviour genuinely changes. That's why the project leans so heavily on rail access, walkability and public transport integration. Because if car dependency increases, the regeneration risks overwhelming the very centre it was meant to relieve. York Central isn't just about building new space, it's about absorbing demand that the old city can no longer carry. If flooding controls fail or traffic solutions fall short, regeneration doesn't unlock growth, it relocates problems, and that tension sits quietly beneath every planning document. This didn't come from one developer, it came from an alliance. Behind the visuals and master plan sits a partnership that took years to align. Different priorities, different landowners, and different risks. And yet, somehow, they landed on the same page. York Central is being delivered through a public-private partnership involving McLaren Property and Arlington Real Estate, working alongside Homes England, Network Rail, and the City of York Council, with the National Railway Museum as a neighbouring stakeholder. Over £135 million in government funding has already been committed to unlock infrastructure, roads, utilities and access that make development possible. Without that public investment, the site would remain economically frozen. This isn't market-led regeneration, it's state-enabled transformation. And the scale of that intervention becomes clearer when you follow the money forward. The ripple effects are bigger than the footprint. Once construction starts, it doesn't stay contained. Labour moves in, businesses cluster nearby, and demand spreads outward. And York Central is designed to pull hard. Across the full lifespan of the project, York Central is expected to deliver around 2,500 new homes and support up to 6,500 jobs, both directly and indirectly. Economic forecasts suggest it could add around £1.1 billion to the local economy, potentially increasing York's total economic output by around 20%. That scale will shift housing demand, employment patterns, and long-term investment decisions across the entire region. This isn't growth at edges, it's gravity at the core. But that's where one question every major regeneration eventually has to answer. York's past isn't negotiable, so the future has to adapt. Building next to one of England's most historic cities isn't just a design challenge, it's a political and cultural one. Every brick invites scrutiny. Design teams have emphasised sustainability and distinctly York character, with some housing aimed for high environmental standards, generous green spaces and street patterns inspired by historic forms rather than towers of isolated blocks. Public consultations have shaped layouts, heights and access routes. The intention is evolution, not erasure. A modern district that doesn't overpower its surroundings. York Central is testing whether regeneration can feel additive, not evasive. And now the outcome rests on decisions that haven't even been made yet. Planning decisions are expected in spring 2026, with construction on the first major phase potentially starting later that year and completing around 2028. But York Central isn't a single deadline, it's a multi-decade transformation that could run well into the 2030s. Every approval unlocks another layer, every delay reshapes the timeline, and as housing pressure, transport demand, and economic uncertainty continue to shift nationally, the project sits at a crossroads between ambition and reality. The land is ready, the funding is partly in place, the vision is clear. What remains unanswered is how boldly and how carefully York chooses to build its next chapter. I think this could genuinely transform the city, not just in scale, but in confidence. A £2 billion regeneration of this size has the potential to reposition York along other major cities, rather than leaving it defined solely by its past. If it's delivered well, it could change how the city works, how people move through it, and how York is seen nationally, not as a place catching up, but as the one setting the pace. If you enjoyed the breakdown of this story, and you want more just like this, make sure that you like the video, subscribe to my channel, and comment your thoughts on this story in the comments below.